Hi, it's Victor Chang with Bookmercial Productions, and today I'd like to share with you an excerpt of a speech that I gave at Harvard Business School and the MIT Sloan School of Business. And it has to do with achieving extreme revenue growth inside of a company. And there's a rule of thumb that I think is a very useful rule to keep in mind if you're thinking about growing your company very dramatically. And it has to do with building a business that's operationally scalable, a business that can go from $1 million to $2 million to $5 million to $10 million very, very quickly without breaking down. And this is a rule that I first learned somewhat indirectly from a member of the Forbes 400 list, a guy named by the name of Joe Lamont, who was the founder and CEO of a software company actually called Trilogy. And he was a Stanford dropout, and I happened to be at Stanford at the time he started the company. So I was sort of indirectly familiar with the company initially and sort of learned more about him over the next few years. And there's this rule that he used to sort of challenge his employees with that's really stuck with me all these years. And it's called the 10X rule. And here's how the 10X rule works. If your business were to grow in size by 10 times overnight, what would happen in your business? What would break, right? And if you're like most CEOs, pretty much everything breaks, right? If you go from 10 million to 100 million or 100 million to a billion, literally overnight, what breaks down, right? And the rule, or the rule of thumb, is really meant to be provocative and challenge your thinking in terms of how you've designed your business and whether you design it in a way that scales very well so that it multiplies effortlessly. For example, do you have the human resources capabilities to suddenly handle an influx of 10 times more employees? Do you have the marketing capabilities to suddenly increase and ramp up your lead generation by tenfold? And all these issues, you can literally go down to every aspect of the company, down to how do you procure desks and chairs for 10 times more employees? You know, very essential, very basic things. Where do you put them? You know, do you have 10 times the real estate? How would you get it on such short notice? And the 10 times rule is really meant to sort of challenge your thinking. Do you really have a business that can scale up or can multiply itself in terms of its size relatively quickly? And of course, most CEOs fail the test, which is sort of the whole purpose of the test. But it's meant to force you to think about what would break down first. And one of the key ideas in trying to pass or attempting to pass this 10 times rule is figuring out ways to make your business grow and scale up in size with less fewer bottlenecks. And I'll give you some examples. So one of the challenges with 10 times growth is training employees, right? When you're very small, you train people by teaching them, sometimes yelling at them, and otherwise mentoring them. And as you get bigger, you have sort of employees who train other employees. Maybe you have a train-the-trainer type system. But if you had 10 times the growth, literally overnight, like everything would break down, right? And so this is just a very important topic, and it's just very fundamental to trying to generate extreme revenue growth as well as to manage it. And what I want to talk about today is just give you one example of how you can manage such rapid growth. And it's by using what I call repeatable systems. And repeatable systems are things that can be repeated relatively effortlessly. As an example, my company produces something called a Bookmercial, which essentially is a book that is sort of 90% useful information for prospective clients and maybe 10% sort of a commercial for a particular company. And one of the powerful tools that Bookmercial is useful for is it helps you multiply your sales force's effectiveness. Right? You take your best sales presentation, all the right arguments, all the reasoning and logic and examples and stories and anecdotes and success stories and case studies of why your customers have been very successful with your products, and you put it inside of a Bookmercial. And it's a lot easier to print, say, 10,000 copies of Bookmercial overnight, at a snap of a finger. See, that's a scalable sort of marketing system. It's a lot easier than hiring 10 times more sales staff overnight. So that's an example of how you can sort of scale up your effectiveness in marketing and sales by using a tool that can be repeated and duplicated fairly effortlessly. A Bookmercial can also be used for internal training. If you're trying to get new sales staff really sort of indoctrinated in your way of thinking and how you think of the world and how prospects really ought to think of the world, then using a Bookmercial can also be a very useful tool for them. You train them on the methodologies, your thought processes, your ideas, the paradigm shifts that you have in mind, and it helps them get accustomed to how they should be interacting with prospects and customers. And again, it's much easier to run off an extra 100 copies of a Bookmercial than it is to sit down and train and mentor one-on-one individual sales reps. And obviously you want to do that whenever you can. But certainly in a time with rapid growth, you want as many parts of your business to be easily multipliable with as minimal effort as possible. And so that's just an idea I wanted to pass along today around 10 times growth. I find the Bookmercial is a very useful way for not just generating growth, and we'll talk about that probably in a later video, but in terms of managing growth. When you are driving sales and you're at maximum capacity, how do you get your people trained? How do you educate your prospects in a way that is not as human resource or labor intensive as you did last year? All those issues can all be sort of addressed in part by using a Bookmercial. Last final thought too on the topic of using a Bookmercial as a way to scale a business. If you're on the road a lot, traveling a lot, meeting, sort of doing high-level executive to executive type sales, which a number of my clients and prospects typically are, a Bookmercial is a very useful tool for sending in advance of your meetings. When your Bookmercial precedes you, your key messages, your paradigm, your shifts in paradigm, the way you think about the kind of problems your prospects have, are all outlined in a crystal clear fashion for those prospects in advance. And so what it does is it gives you, it sort of solves half your sales problem for you in advance. Before you even walk in the front door, before you meet them for the first time, they're sort of halfway sold already. And that just makes life a lot easier. It makes it possible to do selling more by phone if you're doing trying to cut down back on travel. It's sort of a simple way to multiply your most effective sales messages, your most effective marketing messages in a way that's easy to multiply. Again, it's much easier to run off 1,000, 10,000 copies of a Bookmercial and mail them than it is to hire 100 employees or 1,000 employees, which would be such an enormous task. So that's the thought I want to leave you today, is using the 10 times rule. Certainly the Bookmercial can help there. It's not the only tool available, obviously, but it's something for you to think about. If you are achieving rapid growth in your company and you're trying to struggle a little bit with sort of managing that growth without having the wheels sort of fly off the car because you're going so fast, look for ways in your business to make it more easy to multiply, make your operationals more scalable so you can go from 10 times growth overnight and you wouldn't break down quite so quickly. So that's my thought for the day. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.